I feel guilty because
Why?
I wake up I nap at 2:00 on Sundays. I wake up at 5 and I feel like the whole day's gone and I haven't done anything. And yet the irony is that I'm supposed to be resting on Sunday, right?
Well, Sunday is the day of rest.
Right. It's just I feel like
look at Angus, he's yawning.
Yeah, I feel like I didn't do anything, and that's why housework on Sundays.
But you already work 16-hour days. It's not
so Sundays, every other Sunday, I mow the lawn because the Tuesday following is when they come pick up all the clippings.
They actually pick up clippings out where you live?
Yeah. So Tuesday they pick up. So every other Sunday I mow the lawn, and then my neighbor. Oh my God, my neighbors hate me. The neighbor to my left, as you're looking at the house, retired couple, lovely couple. Their lawn is as immaculate as you can imagine. So
it's filled with herbicides and...
I don't know, but it's immaculate. Their backyard, and we can see into their backyard. A lovely dog. He's got these parts of his lawn or his backyard where they've got flowers and all this beautiful stuff, and all we have is weeds. So now the thing is this: if you mow it short enough, if you mow it short enough, you won't see the weeds at least from a distance. But the moment you start growing, the weeds just come up, and I always feel guilty. But that's what happens when you. So
I have a neighbor in Stouffville where I'm moving from.
Yeah.
Right next door.
Yeah.
They have it's a really lovely home on the corner, and the lawn is immaculate.
Yeah.
They have a service come in every couple of months, and they do all this work. And I've never seen them. And for years and years, I never saw them. They rented out the basement, so there are people down there, but I really never see them, much of them anyways. And one day, I'm talking to my landlord, Big Al, and Al says, "Oh yeah, there's a 90-something old lady who owns that house, and she doesn't live there, but she maintains it."
How?
Well, because she hires a service.
Oh, I see.
The place is just immaculate. And I'm thinking well, she doesn't even live there. And so the upstairs has never been lived in like years. And it looks picture perfect outside. Why? I guess you have money to burn.
She wants to keep it immaculate. But yeah, our every other week, the lawn looks good.
Oh, every other week.
And then if we don't, thankfully we've been getting enough rain.
Yeah.
But if we don't get enough rain, we'll start getting dry patches and things like this. And because we don't have a sprinkler, my neighbor has a sprinkler.
Oh.
My neighbor on the other side has a sprinkler. Their lawns are green.
They have those pop-up sprinklers?
Oh, yes. Oh, so every morning I walk the dogs, and there are times where as I'm walking, I'm still in a stupor, right? I wake up too early, and suddenly the sprinkler comes on, and I'm drenched. Dogs love it. I'm drenched. Yeah, it's happened quite a few times. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway. Hi, everyone. As usual, Adrian from Audio Excellence Canada, Vilip, and Angus the Beef behind the camera. In case you're wondering, Angus is pretty fit, but the reason why we call him a beef is because I can never remember his name. So I think of Angus, I think of the beef, and there you go. So that's Angus the Beef. Anyway.
That's the reason?
That's the reason. Word association. It's a little trick that you use to help your memory. And I'm needing that more and more these days. So today we're going to talk about NAD M33 versus the Hegel H390. So this is interesting because, number one, I had no idea about NAD. NAD has this incredible lineup of products, but I don't know any about them.
We're dealers, you know.
Yeah, and I know nothing about them because, one, the models make no sense to me, right? M33, what does that mean?
Masters.
Right. What's 33? You know, again, it goes back to...
there was a 32. I believe there was probably a 31.
Yeah, it goes back to my issue with, simple, descriptive models. Anyway.
Like Wilson Audio Sabrina X.
You sold the NAD tuner. Tell me the tuner's model.
C347.
See? If your life depended, you couldn't tell me that.
437.
And why would it be a C? Why wouldn't it be a T?
No. So C is for classic. That's the style. That's the gray, dark gray kind of color in those chassis. And they've always had tuners in the 400 series. So originally there was like 4150 is a famous one because that had the shots tuner. And I've owned a 4125, but now they only use 3 numbers, so now it's 437. And it's one of the few tuners you can get, fairly decent FM reception, and it has AM, and it's only about
shout out to Magnum Dynalab if they're still making tuners, because they made some
they're much more
good.
expensive
Yeah,
ones than that.
they made some.
But the NAD is relatively inexpensive.
Yeah.
You can buy it brand new for $500 some odd dollars Canadian.
So I certainly was aware of the Masters products back about 6-7 years ago, I guess, when they first came out. The gentleman who was one of the reps for NAD was a good friend of mine. He passed away, unfortunately. And he and I were talking about how NAD as a company was spending a ton of money developing the technology. And he had heard it and he was very, very impressed. So I was aware of it. And then we became a dealer for some of the general NAD products, not the Masters products. And then, of course, now we are. But I was never aware of the range of products because, again, in the store, we're very careful to curate the products that we have. And so we only carry products that we've had direct experience with and we really, really like. So Vilip's client, as part of his purchase of Wilson speakers, decided to trade in the NAD M33.
He was using it in his bedroom.
Yeah.
And it was being fed by an MA12000. He bought an MA12000 from us, and he had a long interconnect going to the M33. So everything was being fed from his front room system.
So Vilip says, we should do a demo of this thing. And by the way, we should keep this because, we don't have NAD and it's very hard to get this M33. I said,
it was back ordered and sold out for a long time.
So I said, reluctantly, fine. Again, I knew nothing about what the M33 is. So we keep it. My first visual of it was, wow, this thing looks good. It's really well made. It's hefty. It's got a beautiful display on the front. Very nice. So anyway, then Vilip says we should do a comparison between this and the Hegel H390 because the price is almost the same. The NAD is 7,000 Canadian and the Hegel is how much?
7,500.
75. So $500 difference. And functionally, they're similar. They're both streamer integrated amplifiers. But here's the crazy thing. And again, Angus will list a comparison sheet of all the different features between the two of them. But suffice it to say, the NAD is like all singing, all dancing. It's got almost everything you can think of with the exception of surround sound, right? It's got a direct live room correction system.
Direct live limited
edition, which you apparently can unlock and go
Yes.
full edition if you pay $99 or something like that. It's got DAC built in. It's got 200 watt amplifier built in, HDMI, and it'll do enhanced audio return channels. So if you connect your TV to it, you can now watch your TV through your audio system, right? 6 digital inputs, 3 analog, phono. Crazy. It has 2 sub-outs, Bluetooth, AirPlay 2, headphone, Alexa control, one of my banes, things that I don't like. Not because Alexa is no good, but because I don't want Big Brother to be constantly monitoring us. Smart home control, Crestron, Control 4, Lutron, Apple, 2 additional slots for future expansion.
Yeah, so that you can put 2 MDC cards in it, one of which could be the USB interface, so you could use it as a USB DAC.
Crazy. Like, seriously, this thing is so fully featured, it's unbelievable. And it's $500 cheaper than the Hegel. Now, the Hegel is basically a 2-channel, really good integrated amp streamer DAC. I mean, that basically is the,
It's got some tricks.
Right? Well, yeah, so AirPlay 1.
No, the AirPlay 2 is coming.
Yeah. It's
I've been promised.
Yeah. But it's very, very good. It's one of our favorites for sure in the store. We love it very much sonically. There's nothing really to criticize as far as that goes. But in terms of features, wow, the NAD just walks all over it. So we thought, okay, well, we're not going to go into all the different features and so on, but we'll talk about the sound. If you were to connect a source, let's say a digital source to either of them, what would it sound like? So our previous video, which will probably drop first, we did a comparison between the iFi Zen Stream versus the Blue Sound Node.
The new one.
Yes. And we took the digital coax out from either of those units and connected it to the Hegel H390. Now, I actually did connect it to both the
390
NAD and as well as the Hegel 390, just to see what the differences were. But ultimately, for the other video, used the Hegel. So in this video, we're comparing both the integrated amplifiers. So Vilip, go ahead.
Well, I was really keen on listening to this because it sounds super interesting.
Well, actually, we should also preface this. The NAD is Stereophile's 2020 recommended components list,
everybody
product
loves
of the
it.
year.
Everybody loves it.
It's like every accolade you can think of, Stereophile just, this
So
is
it
it.
uses a new type of Class D amplifier.
Tact.
Whatever.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know why I don't know why they can't call it like Super Class D or something like that. But it is a Class D amplifier, but it's the latest topology. And
Bruno Puzzi's.
Yeah. You can get an amplifier version of this alone, which is called the C298. See, I know the code. But that is not supposed to be as good as this. So the M33 is supposed to be better than the standalone
Really?
stereo power, because I guess the power supply is a little bit better and the integration is a little bit better. So supposedly straight out of the box, the M33 will outperform the C298 by a little bit. Yeah, so we got it. I'm happy. It looks beautiful, obviously. It's really, really well made.
Yeah, it is.
And it's not too heavy. So for those of you who might be a little bit more advanced in age, it's not something that you have a difficulty, moving about. And it's got everything you can imagine. I mean, everything you can imagine. I didn't try the phono stage. I didn't try some of those other things because we don't have a HDMI setup. I just basically, as you said, wanted to listen to the sound of it. And my initial impression of it when we first hooked
And by
up,
the way, it's legitimate because all inputs are apparently digitized. So whether or not you use a turntable or not, if you use a turntable into the phono stage, it actually digitizes
it's not such a unique topology anymore. Because there's a lot of systems out there that do exactly the same thing. The prime example of which is, of course, obviously DVLA. They that's what they do. So to convert it into bits and then convert it back, it kind of like focuses things inside internally and it makes it much more consistent. Now that being said, the sound of the unit when I first hooked it up, which was in this room with, I believe we had Sonus Faber Serafinos in here. And I was quite impressed with it. It had a kind of, it had more weight and mass and the kind of meatiness to the bottom end than I was expecting. Because, my experience with Class D is being kind of hit and miss. I've had them in the past. I've used them long term. And I've had, ice power, I've had Pascal modules. I've had, what's the other one? Well, anyways, there's three major ones. Hypex. I've listened to all three. Of the three, I liked most the Pascal. And now I've heard this. We left it in the room for a bit, listened to a bit more, and it was quite competent. I was not expecting that level of competency, to tell you the truth. I was a little bit skeptical because anytime you read all these reviews that are so effusive in its praise, I personally hold something back and I really want to know what it actually sounds like to me. And, I reserve my judgment. I will just not accept anybody who says that it's the best thing ever until I actually hear it. So we put it in the other room, in the home theater room, and we ran it for a bit, and we ran it for a bit more. We waited for the H390 to burn in, and then really I had a serious listening test last night. It still was very good. And again, the danger is when you listen and you A/B between the two units, you begin to understand where the weaknesses are in comparison. So obviously the H390 did some things a lot better. And overall, surprise, surprise, I prefer the 390. The M33, though, is still very good. The mids are quite sumptuous. It doesn't sound like Class D. So that's a big plus right there. It's fairly grippy, but not to the point of being stark in the bottom end. In fact, the way I heard it, the mids were really good. The highs were quite extended and a little bit soft. There was no edge or harshness to it. The issue I had with the M33 out of the box, without any of the DSP stuff working, without running direct live, is that the bass was a bit cloudy. I thought it was murky and cloudy, and because I know that direct live in the limited edition that comes with the unit corrects bass from the very bottom to about 500 hertz, which is into the mid range, and this is the problem I heard with that amp. It's just out of the box. And then when compared to the H390, the bass was just not as consistent, which was surprising to me that a Class D amp would not be more authoritative, especially below, 100 hertz.
Yeah, because most Class D, well, not most, but Class D promises.
Right. It has a fairly
control.
high damping factor out of the box. I would assume it's at least 1,000, if not more. Because that's the nature of Class D amplification. And anyways, this is what I heard. To me, the bottom end was not quite up to snuff. And I can understand, yes, you're supposed to use the room correction software to make this okay. But in my estimation, an amp should sound, correct more so than not. If you need to add the DSP to make it just okay, that could be a bit of a problem.
Well, in theory, the DSP is supposed to help the room interaction with the amp. But if the amp itself has an issue, the DSP...
Well, this is why when you A/B it, so when I put the 390 on, and for those who watched the video from before about the streamers, the 390 was better in almost every way. I wouldn't say it was better in the mids. It was at least the equal of the M33, and the highs, the same thing, any high frequencies. So those two amps are fairly equal above 500 hertz. In the bottom end, as it stands, the H390 is so much better in terms of how it controls the woofer movements we were using the Sonetto 5 there. You can hear it right away. I don't know how else to explain it. It just seemed more complete. We've talked a lot about the 390 in the past, and every bit that we've talked about comes to the fore when you compare it to the M33. Now, if you're listening to less kind of bass-heavy things, the mids and the highs in the M33 are very silky. So that's a big plus. And again, somewhat surprising, but I suppose they've done so much work with these amps and with this particular unit that it should be very well sorted out. What will be interesting, of course, is every review I've ever read, they've always used the direct live to correct it, and they say it makes a big improvement. And I do believe in those kinds of systems. We know that Room Perfect works very well. It's seamless. It's utterly invisible once it's activated.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, my thinking when it comes to room correction is that if the product itself is already good, any kind of room correction device that's good helps to ameliorate some of the issues with the actual room interaction itself. But if the product itself has a problem, I don't see how room correction ultimately will change that per se. That's a good point.
I mean, look at it this way. We didn't change anything. We just switched the cables. So the speakers are in exactly the same place. The room doesn't change. We weren't adding things. I was sitting in exactly the same spot. I played exactly the same music. I used exactly the same cables and streamer. And there's a distinct difference between the two, and it's all in the bottom end. One of the reasons I did not do the direct live is it's only PC based, and I really don't like PC computers.
He doesn't.
I don't. Everybody.
How you use it.
I do know how to use it. I just hate it. I mean, Adrian might hate Rune. I hate PCs. I really dislike using them.
Well, one of these days, maybe we'll do a follow-up with Direct Live. But I think what you will hear with Direct Live is basically the interaction of the room may be improved, but it still doesn't necessarily change the characteristic of the amplifier if the amplifier base is woolly. Then, because when you connected the Hegel, the woolliness was gone.
It was totally gone.
So
The speaker operated beautifully in that room. Bass was tight, punchy, textural. It just had, like if a bass note was more than one note, you would hear both notes. With the M33, without the room correction, bass was not as good.
Yeah.
So you would expect that if it was a room issue, you would hear it with both amps.
Yeah, no, I definitely didn't. So for the most part, I would, Jesus, it's like we're always saying the same things now. I would generally echo what Vilip says. I'll clarify a few things. So first, again, as is usual, I didn't read up about the NAD. I wanted to hear it without any kind of preconceptions. So I listened to it, didn't know it was a Class D amplifier, didn't know who Eigentat was. I had no idea that it had a product called Eigentat in there. I didn't know that Bruno Pazzi's was involved or Bruno Pazzi's company was involved. All I knew was this was NAD, looked nice front faceplate, nice touch panel in the front, beautifully made in the back, lots of controls. I could see it just from looking at the back going, wow, this thing, you look at the back of the Hegel and it's like a desert, a few buttons, a few connectors here and there, lots of space in between, right? And then you look at this thing and it's like every inch of space.
It's populated.
It's like an AV receiver. Every inch of space that's available, here, let's stick in another thing. So in that sense, I was impressed. And then, of course, you realize I knew the pricing roughly, and so I thought, you seem to be getting a lot for your money. So I listened. So in the mornings when I come in, I will put on some music in the background just to get some energy going. And so this morning, I search on a ruined title called Coffee House Music or something.
Oh, yeah, that just came out.
Right?
Yeah.
And then I'll go on the right-hand side of the button that's, and you can drop down menu and says play radio. So in other words, it's Rune's curation of music that's sort of similar. And then the listening room that we are using is about, 40 feet, 50 feet away from my office?
Yep.
Maybe more. And there's lots of walls in between and lots of airspace. So you can't really hear very much of music, but there's just enough of background music as I'm doing some work. And then suddenly I hear this boom, boom, boom. I go, what the hell is that? So I run into the room and there's this piece of music. And if you guys like bass and power, check this recording out. The cut is called Unsuitable, and the album is called Early Morning Jazz, which is appropriate. Right at the beginning, right? When this is over, you guys should check it out. Right at the beginning, there's this big kick drum, and the guy's playing on the kick drum. Boom, boom. And all this bass is coming out of this system. I'm going, wow, that's impressive. So I sat down and listened to the whole thing. Then I thought, let me listen to the Hegel. I connected it over to the Hegel, and there was a stark contrast. And I thought, but I didn't know what I was hearing because I had heard the whole album, I saw the album song. I don't know the song, so I decided to listen to it again through the NAD. And then while the bass is still very impressive, the kick drum still very impressive, suddenly you notice the differences that Vilip were talking about. Power is there. Bass is rounder and a bit veiled, not quite as transparent, not quite as clear, not quite as articulate. Almost as if the room was resonating. So then I paused that, switched over to the Hegel. This is a lot of work because, just back and forth quite a few times.
It's like 5 cables. And
the Hegel was, all the punch was there, but detailed, clear, articulate, tighter. You still had that punch, but it had a clarity to it. I was stunned. And so then I listened to my playlist. And again, Yeah, overall the voices are sort of similar. I found that the NAD was a little bit more forward in a good way. It was intimate, didn't sound harsh or anything. Recordings, if they were sibilant, it would tend to focus a little bit on that, but not to the point where it was offensive. It seemed to also have a bit more attack with the NAD, a little bit more of the leading edge. Whereas with the Hegel, I heard far more separation, far more air. And while maybe the attack wasn't quite as quick and maybe quite as strong, there was a lot more punch behind that.
I found the Hegel to have that kind of rawness. If the music had it, then you would hear it.
Yeah.
And the NAD overall was a bit more polite. It was very civilized and sorted out, but not quite as exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, then the other thing that was interesting. So we've used the Hans Thiesing St. James Infirmary cut forever. It's like ever since I heard of it many, many years ago, I would use it from time to time. So with the NAD and the Hegel, but first with the NAD, which is quite interesting. Suddenly I realized that he's not using a pick. He's just using his fingers as he's picking the music, picking the strings. So I thought, now that's interesting. I know this album. How can I never noticed this before? I listened to the Hegel, and Hegel's even more clear about it, but I never noticed it before. Now, it might have something to do with the fact that I don't like this piece of music. I use it really as a test track, as to showcase the micro and macro dynamics. But with the NAD, it maybe for the first time, I noticed that he was using his fingers. Angus is saying we've got 3 minutes. Do we want to continue with this? Is there more to talk about?
Continue it.
Yeah, we want to continue?
Sure,
okay,
yeah.
so let's stop this now.
A few moments later.
And we're back. So
you're listening to this track, and
yeah, so I have to say I'm not crazy about this particular cut anymore, musically, because we've played it to death. But I was very surprised and glad to hear those details that the NAD imparted, and that the Hegel, once I heard it, confirmed and perhaps even in a more convincing and clear way. So for me, yes, definitely the Hegel is better. I do miss, however, having said that, as much as I love the Hegel sonically, I miss the fact that the NAD has all these really, really good, useful features. You know, direct live if you choose to use it. HDMI audio return channel if you want to use your TV in your audio system. Really nice touchscreen, although I'm not a big fan of touchscreens in general. Yeah, I like the NAD a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about the M33. You know, one of the things is that if you're looking for just the one unit, the M33 ticks all the boxes.
Yeah.
And the musical quality is sufficiently high. It actually is very good. Don't get us wrong. You know, like, we're not saying that it's bad in any way, shape, or form. You know, we're just absolutely trying to compare it. And you know, I'm quite loath all the time to do A/B comparisons for this exact reason. Something always suffers. So if you have a winner, you know, most people think there's a loser. And in this case, there's actually two winners. They're just different. And for the audio purists, I believe the H390 is a better choice. Just it's simpler. What it does really, really well, to the point of actually being above what that price point is.
Yeah, I think if you're a two-channel purist, the 390 might be a better choice for you. If you if you're looking for something that will allow you to integrate all these different things into your system, it's hard to think of a better choice.
I did not find the M33 to be fatiguing at all. So
No.
it's something that can be on the entire day, has a beautiful display. You can add all these things to it. Obviously, you don't have to buy a phono stage with it, because you can just have a good basic turntable.
Although philosophically, I have an issue with digitizing phono. I mean, the whole point is, if you have phono, if you're doing phono, it's because you like analog. Why would you then digitize the thing? I understand that there are benefits. You know, you digitize it, you have a digital signal, you can do things to the file and so on. I understand all that, but if you are going to the
Okay,
trouble,
so you buy an i5 Zen Phonos,
Yeah.
$249 Canadian, no big deal.
yeah, no, I'm just saying, the phono stage is digitized. To me, that I wouldn't bother putting a really good phono stage in it. Phono turntable into
Well, I'm not
it.
suggesting that. You buy a
Yeah.
project,
Yeah.
$500,
Yeah.
$1,000. That's
It's just
peanuts.
me. That's my weirdness. But I think it's a fantastic piece in so many ways. I wish the Hegel had more features. What features? Does it have headphone? It doesn't have headphone.
390 does not.
Yeah. So I wish it did, because there'll be times that headphones would be useful. I do wish it had a nice display in the front, although again, I'm not a huge
It
fan
is an
of
OLED display.
Yes. Yeah,
So-
but it's useless. No touch,
there's
nothing.
none of that.
And not only that, there's one bugaboo for me when it comes to Hegel. You don't know what the model is. The only way you'll know what the model, again, it's only, see, the guys are rolling their eyes. Angus is like,
Hey, I brought this up first.
You
I mean, you
did?
cannot tell the difference between an H95, H120.
yeah.
They're exactly the same chassis.
Yeah, you can't tell. And in the store, this is important because we're always doing demos and you're trying to figure out what you're using. The only way you can tell is if you look in the back and there's a piece of paper with a serial number on it, and right beside it, it tells you it's H95 or H120.
Even I've confused the 190 with the 390, and the 190 is physically a little bit lower. It's not as tall.
Yeah.
But I've still confused it.
I mean, I understand the whole Norwegian, Scandinavian thing, minimalist and so on, but hell, simple, just stencil in little thing on the
No, I
left-hand
think
side.
I've told Richard this. Tell the guys in Norway, just when the screen comes on and it flashes Hegel, it should also have the name of the unit. It should say H whatever.
No,
and
I
that's simple.
want it physically on the front somewhere. Again, just from a dealer standpoint, it just makes things a lot
we
easier.
could put little stickers on it.
Yeah, maybe
We have one
should
of those machines.
get one of those engraving
And guess
machines and
you-
just engrave
no.
it.
You can want to engrave it.
Yeah,
You
just
want to get
engrave
a Dremel tool and engrave
Yes,
it.
that's right. Because that is, for me, major bugaboo, because I don't do demos a lot for visitors in the store. But when I do, and you get to my age where I can't see shit, excuse the language, you have to do this thing and to look in the back and trying to figure out what this is. That's a major pain. But on the other hand, the sound is so good. It makes up for these kinds of logistical issues that I have. Yeah, I must say overall. Well, there is a loser, having compared the two.
What's that?
NAD is a much, much, much bigger company. So presumably they will have their supply chain issues ironed out sooner than later. Hegel, we've had an issue since the lockdown. In fact, even before the lockdown, remember over a year and a half ago,
Yes.
we are always dealing with back orders. And during the lockdown, it got really bad. I think the H95 was like 4 or 5 months. And we're
Oh, we
always
still
trying,
can't get them.
and we're always trying to buy in anticipation, and we're still backward in a lot of cases.
So essentially what we do is we tell Richard, we want 5 of these. And he says, well, 3 came into the country. You can have 1.
Yeah, in the whole country, and you'll get 1 if you're lucky. And then, so the loser in this case is that people are going to watch this video. They're going, well, I'm an audio guy. I'm going to buy the H390, and if you decide to buy it in Canada from us, we may not be able to get you one. Whereas presumably with the NAD, we might be able to get stock sooner than later. So maybe I'll reverse my verdict. NAD, much better. Much, much, much better.
Much more available.
That's right.
Much more available. Maybe.
Buy NAD. Hegel sucks. More expensive. Eat more vegetable.
Angus is laughing about that one.
Eat vegetable! Eat broccoli! You'll scare my wife!
Do you know the reference behind eat more vegetables? Who's that? John? Is it John Panette?
Yeah. Your
The-
favorite,
My
slightly
favorite
larger than normal
large comedian.
Yes.
If you guys don't know it, Google. He should be on YouTube.
He's a funny guy.
He has this whole bit about going to buffets, and he goes to this Chinese buffet, and they see him coming in, and they want to kick him out. So, stop eating, go home, eat more vegetable.
Although I don't believe there are any buffet restaurants open today.
I don't know.
You can't, sharing. And
Yeah. Anyway, so enough of the political.
I miss the Mandarin.
Oh, well, there's a really good Chinese buffet 5 minutes from us, Asian Legend.
Oh,
They've got a station where they serve pulled noodles. So for those of you who are really foodies, and I'm not, the guys will tell you I'm not. Apparently, if you actually make noodles by hand and pull them and make them that way, it somehow tastes better. Now, I have no idea why it would.
well, fresh pasta,
Right?
fresh noodles.
No idea. But the soup,
The
the
gluten's
broth,
the way they
the
develop.
broth, they've got the spicy Shanghai
open now?
Beijing broth. I don't know. Oh my God. I usually don't eat lunch. I'm getting hungry. It's so good. They've got chashu, the barbecue pork. They've got wontons, and you can get all of that. And they've got it's so good. That is the best station of all
Oh
the
my
things that they
gosh.
serve.
It's,
It's so
we've
good.
evolved so much.
As usual. All right, we're going to cut this in. As usual, if you've heard the NAD or if you've heard the Hegel or if you've compared the two, we'd love to see your comments. Let us know what you think. If you like this, please give us a thumbs up. If you don't like it, thumbs down, doesn't matter. It helps with the algorithm. Subscribe. We're almost at 20,000. I think we're at 18
that's
now or
pretty
so.
amazing.
Yeah, that'd be
considering,
very cool.
We're just really doing this on the lark.
Yeah.
It's not.
Well, when we get to 20, we'll have to do something special. Maybe Vilip
Maybe
will
we'll
do a
laugh
strip
at
dance.
Jay. Ha ha ha.
Oh,
ha.
we'll get Jay back.
He's only at 50,000.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Good for him, though.
good for him.
Yeah, good for him. So we'll get Jay back and we'll laugh at him when he comes in. Yeah. So anyway, we thank you very much for watching and as usual, subscribing. And for those of you who don't know, the money we get from YouTube, we match it and we donate to charity. So the fact that you watch means a lot to us. So thank you very much for this. We hope to see you soon and take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
All right, take care.